From the KHON2 News, this is a special report.
Good afternoon, everybody. Once again, Howard Deshefsky live in the KHON2 News studio as we are awaiting once again to take you live to the Big Island, where we will be getting a daily update, a 3 p.m. update from Civil Defense. Talmadge Magno, the Big Island Civil Defense Coordinator, as he's been doing daily, will come out and address the media and provide all the latest information. Of course, we say 3 o'clock, but Hawaii time. Yesterday, that update happened at about 3:15. This, what you're looking at on the right, this was a big explosion that took place, a big column of ash and smoke arising, overlooking the crater at the summit of Kilauea volcano. HVO's interpretation of what happened here, what you're looking at, is that it was triggered by a rock fall from the steep walls of the overlooked crater. This photograph of these images taken early this morning at about 8:30 from the Jagger Museum. Now, that is the place where, if you've been to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, that is the primary museum that overlooks the Halemaumau crater and looks right into the lava lake. The explosion, we're told, was pretty short-lived, but you can see pretty dramatic the results of that. One of the big concerns, remember just about 10 days ago, before this whole eruptive event that we're now covering, there was what they were calling an inflationary period that was happening not only down at Pu'uo'o Vent and in the East Rift Zone, but in Halemaumau crater itself. And that lava lake, the lava that normally kind of bubbles down about 100 feet or so below the surface of that pit inside the crater, well, it was bubbling up and over. And on the largest day, some 44 acres of lava covered or spilled out, covering the floor of Halemaumau. The fear now is that that lava lake is dropping so low that it could interact with the water table underneath the volcano. Now, if that were to happen, imagine if you put 1,200-degree lava and you dropped it into some water, what's going to happen? You're going to have a huge explosion of heat and ash when they come together simultaneously. And we're going to go to Justin Cruz in a short while just to kind of explain the science behind that. But if that were to happen, that could be something very dramatic and very potentially dangerous for anybody who's in the park. As scientists with the Hawaii Volcanoes Observatory are saying that that could possibly shoot pebbles and ash hundreds of feet in the air and perhaps surround an area of up to a half-mile wide. We're not just talking little pebbles too, but huge chunks of rock and other things. Now, Marissa Yamane has been on the Big Island for the last couple of days. She actually had an opportunity to go up there to Hawaii Volcanoes National Park and brings us now an update of what's happening and what happened earlier at the Halemaumau crater.
Hi, Howard. Over my shoulder, you can see the white plume coming out of Halemaumau crater. White now, but take a look at this video that we shot from around 11 o'clock this morning. So what's happening in this video is lava lake is so low, rocks are breaking off, they're falling in, and when those rocks hit what's left of the lava, there are gas explosions, poof, up comes all that ash and dust. And while it is creating an amazing sight, scientists are monitoring the situation because it won't be too good if the lava lake drops too low.
And so one of the concerns is if the lava lake continues to drop and it drops below the water table, instead of these gas-driven explosions like we're seeing now, we could get into a situation where the water from the groundwater below the water table could mix in with the magma, and then we would have these steam-driven explosions. We refer to them as phreatic explosions, and they can be orders of magnitude larger. It was similar to what happened in 1924 when there were these large explosions, and those are more vigorous and there's more energy involved, and so larger fragments can be blown out and greater distances.
How far, I mean, would people here standing at Jagger Museum be in any danger?
Well, it depends on the vigor of the explosion and the wind direction. So yes, there could be, if the winds are right, we could have a dusting of ash here. If it's a really explosive, there could be pebbles falling here, but I can assure you that we're working closely with Hawaii Volcanoes National Park, and if that becomes a possibility, it's already a possibility. If it becomes closer to a possibility, the National Park will take action to keep visitors safe.
And that could mean closing the park, or at least this area. The bottom line is safety. But nevertheless, take a look at this. This is drawing quite a crowd here and definitely quite a treat for everyone visiting Jagger Museum and Halemaumau Crater. Back to you, Howard.
All right, Marissa, thank you very much. Yeah, people travel by the hundreds of thousands every year to come to the Big Island specifically to see the volcano. Many people are shut out. Well, the people that are near now, boy, they're getting a treat and then some. In fact, some people unable to see it because the park was closed last week, Friday and into Saturday, when the first breakouts happened because of fumes and potential dangers. But right now, the visitors have an opportunity to see what's going on inside the park. We do want to tell you that there has been a new fissure that has opened up. It is now fissure number 15, and a total of 1,600 people have been evacuated. We're told the press conference is getting underway, so let's head over to the Big Island and pick up Talmadge Magno with the latest update.
Located south of the rift zone.
This is Jim Kawahikawa.
Really probably occurring within the rift zone.
So you said it might be on the rift zone, if it looks like there's some, because there's not enough seismometers or something?
Well, there is now, but there wasn't earlier, and I'm not sure how well they've assimilated the new data yet. So it's just safe to say that if there's a bunch of seismicity to the south of the rift zone, that it's likely going to be relocated farther inland.
No other homes destroyed today or buildings?
As far as we know, this just happened. Yeah.
36 structures.
Still that number?
Yes, it's still that. This just happened, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jim, can you speak about the activity up at Halemaumau? And there's been a lot of talk, obviously, today about the lava lake level dropping and what happens when it gets to the water table.
There was a question in there somewhere.
You explain a little bit about that process and what we've seen today and what you think that means at this point?
So at the beginning of this process, the lava lake started dropping. The whole summit area started subsiding, the Kilauea crater, which is two phenomena by the same cause. The magma reservoir was depressurizing. What we know from 1924, and of course we use past examples to indicate what's going to happen in the future, but in 1924, very similar things happened. The lava lake actually disappeared because it was a different configuration. We get to see it disappear for quite a bit longer. We can measure the rates. And if it keeps receding from the surface, at some point it's going to be down at or below the level of the water table at the summit. And in 1924, we hypothesized that was the mechanism, the start of the mechanism for explosive eruptions that followed in May of 1924, that the conduit was emptied, the lava kept receding below the water table. At some point, water started invading the column and was flashing into steam. And of course, you can imagine it's a very narrow conduit up to the surface. You have water flashing into steam. It's pretty explosive. And it blew out the conduit. It ended up doubling the diameter of Halemaumau, and it was a pretty impressive set of 2.5 weeks of explosions in the 1924. So we have issued a notice that we see the same conditions starting to occur. Well, they are occurring, and if it follows the 1924 example, there's a possibility that explosions steam blast explosions may occur in a few days.
Today's plume and ash expulsion a result of that, or just? No,
today's. What was that about?
This morning, 8:30 or
something like that. Yeah, 8:30. You're right. That explosion, we believe, was due to rock falls. The column is empty for at least 200 or 300 yards, and we've had a lot of rock falls that have come in. Rocks have fallen in the lake, a big expulsion of gas and stuff, so we get Pele's hair and blobs up to the surface. In this case, we think it was a little bit different, that they continue to be rock falls, but the conduit gets narrower with depth. And I think the last working hypothesis I saw was that the rocks have accumulated down in the bottom, sealing the conduit off, and the magma below was still exsolving gas, and eventually the pressure built up enough to blast the rocks out. very similar to what happened in March of 2008. We got the first blast out. Same thing, the conduit had been blocked by debris and pressure built up. So that's what we think happened.
How much of a threat does that pose to any communities nearby or anything?
Well, if you saw the video of the picture of the plume, it was quite dust laden, and it was moving with the trades to the southwest. So it's possible that communities to the southwest may have gotten a dusting of ash from that explosion this morning.
But if it gets worse, then what does that mean?
Well, if it gets worse, there'll be stronger explosions, and I think our release this morning explains the possible outcomes depending on the size of the ejecta. The larger pieces probably won't go as far as the smaller pieces, and I can't recite that list, but it's in our release this morning.
Are people in the volcano at risk at all if that happens?
Depends on the magnitude of the explosions. There's a community meeting tonight at 7 at the Kilauea Visitor Center inside the park where Tina Neal and Don Swanson will be there to answer questions like that. They're far more informed about it than I am. But it all depends on the energy of the explosions.
What are you looking out for now at the summit? I mean, what do you anticipate might happen?
Yeah, what might happen? Well, I just explained what might happen.
I mean, are you expecting like some giant eruption? Or are you looking for a couple of little splats here and there?
Well, we don't really know, but we are sort of, our past examples have been small to moderate size explosions. And moderate meaning roughly like the 1924. In 1924, a lot of the Kilauea crater and structures on the rim got, say, pea-sized stuff deposited there. Bigger pieces went to shorter distances away.
Is there anything you can tell us about this 15th fissure that's opened up?
Well, it just opened up. It crossed Pohoiki Road between Leilani and Hinalo Street. And it was short-lived. It issued lava flow about 20 meters from the fissure, but that's about it.
So it's no longer actively sitting on
No.
lava?
It didn't damage.
It was degassing. It was putting out SO2 gas, but yeah.
So that would be the closest one so far to PGV, is that correct?
Yes, it was the closest. Let's see. It's a difficult one to answer. I'd have to see a map, but it's going sort of tangential to the PGV property. I guess it's closest to the boundary of the property. But,
Boundary, yeah.
Yeah.
If that one remained active, would it direct lava toward the plant?
I'd have to see a map. I couldn't tell you offhand.
So lava has crossed Pohoiki Road, not just a crack, but actual lava.
No, a crack crossed. The crack was erupting lava out of the crack. It was a fissure.
Yeah.
Fissure vent. The lava itself was flowing away from the fissure, but I don't know. We don't have enough photos yet to tell which way the lava went in this case.
About how wide was the fissure? Just ballpark? About how wide was the fissure?
Couldn't tell you. We have one good aerial view of it, and what most of the view is the side parts where the spatter has started to form a rampart, and so I can't really tell how wide the fissure itself was.
And the time on that one? The time that it opened, as far as you know?
I should have been paying attention.
About 2:30, yeah.
Oh, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is something you can answer, but yeah, if as seems to be getting closer to Puna geothermal, what safety precautions are being taken along those lines?
Okay, I can speak to that. PGV briefed us this morning and said that they were moving of the 60,000 gallons of 67 plus gallons of pentane. They were moving it to shipment today. 15,000 gallons was moving over to shipment, and then in the next couple of days, the remaining 50 some odd thousand gallons are being moved to shipment, and it'll be totally removed.
In the next couple of days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But, if in fact something happens closer to it within those next couple of days, how much of it?
I don't want to speculate. I really don't. I haven't heard, but I know that that my boss Talmadge Magno is out at the scene to inspect and to strategize on contingency plans, okay, to mitigate whatever might happen. But we really are not speculating.
Because I thought they had said before that, was it a couple of days ago, that all that was going to be taken out, but what happened?
I don't know. That's not our deal, but we were definitely being told that it was going to be out within the next couple days, the entire thing. That we heard this morning for the first. I had heard that for the first time this morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much at risk are we at in terms of how this is all playing out next to PGV? I mean, how close are these fissures, and how much at risk are we of sort of the risk?
Jim can tell you. I don't know the distance offhand. How far would you say this fissure, this number 15, is from?
Like how much at risk are we really with PGV
the plant
now?
itself, the wellheads? Do you have a feel for that?
Quite a ways. I mean, the fissure did not go through the boundary.
Yeah.
Not up. It's still in Lonnie Puna Garden.
It's not in PGV's, and PGV is a big property. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a very big property, and you have to go through some way to get to it. It's not, it's not right on the side of the road. It's you have to go through a gate and a long drive, etc. But I can't tell you how far in, but it's far in.
So how worried are you about something, pretty devastating like that occurring as we've seen all this?
I can say we are concerned. There's no question. We are concerned. And we have been concerned about this from the get-go. And we have been thinking about what we can do, et cetera. But I'm not sure exactly at this moment what the plan is, because as you see, this thing has changed. The scenarios have changed hour to hour sometimes. Yeah. So, but I can say that Civil Defense is actively working to strategize what to do next. Yeah. But I can't tell you what.
Pattern is it?
Sorry, I'll last one. Why has it taken so long to move the pentane off site? I mean, it's been going for weeks.
That's a question for PGV.
They shut the plant immediately.
They shut it immediately. We had heard initially that they were waiting for ISO containers, the kind of containers that you carry highly flammable materials like naphtha in. They were telling us that they were supposed to come in from either other islands or the mainland. So that's what we heard. But I don't know. I really can't answer that because that's a PGV question.
And the way the fissures have been opening up, are we looking at a pattern where it seems to be moving toward PGV? Or there is no way to say that?
Well, if you've been watching what happens, the fissure locations have been hopping back and forth. It'd be easy to answer your question if they were all kind of stepping in line in one direction, but they haven't been. Okay. Over the last 2 days, the fissures have been on the eastern end, but even they have not been progressively moving out. It's just the entire group. If you look at the entire group, they are expanding coverage, but very slowly. I mean, this one, 6 was the closest one to Pohoiki before this afternoon, and then now they've probably extended another, maybe, I'm guessing, 150 meters to the east.
Jim, you've been watching this mountain and studying this mountain for years. The fissure activity, the public's been hypersensitive to the number of fissures and the location. Yes. Is the pattern of all these small fissures opening up similar to what you've seen in other places on Kilauea historically, just not in a subdivision, obviously?
It's very similar to the 1955 eruption down in Puna. And in fact, this set of fissures is right within a gap of the 55 fissures. Which is kind of interesting to us, but we don't know what it means yet. But yes, during the 1955 eruption, fissures sort of hopped around, but they generally stayed to one side of Pu'uhonu'ula for the first bit, and then after a pause, they moved over to the west side of Pu'uhonu'ula and went out west of Highway 130. It was similar in the sort of hopping around business. The lavas were less viscous, and so they would erupt, forming flows. In that eruption, there were a couple of flows that actually one on the Kapoho side almost went to the ocean. On the west side from Highway 130, they went to the ocean in 2 different places. So it was slightly different lava than what's currently coming out. This is pretty viscous stuff. It's not going very far. So we're just waiting to see what happens next.
Jim, you guys have been taking samples of the lava. What has that told you?
It's told us that the lavas are quite old. We don't see Pu'u lavas in there yet. And if we had to guess, it might be as if we got a bunch of 1955 lava and stored it in a container somewhere and let it kind of react and percolate and whatever it does, and then took the sample again. It's changed in a way that is consistent with that anyway. And so we will be able to tell when pool or fresher lavas come into the system, but they will also probably be expressed in more fluid lavas being erupted.
So I'm sorry, because it's old lava, what does that mean exactly?
What does old lava mean?
Yeah, what is that telling you, that old lava is coming?
Sorry, I didn't explain that part. What it tells us is that, this intrusion got pushed under the community of the Leilani Estates and the entire rift zone. And so as it's come up, it's actually tapped other stored magmas under the ground. And so as it's come up, it's pushed out these older stored lavas. And so what we're seeing is stuff that's been sitting there for 60 years or so, which means that the fresher stuff is behind. It hasn't quite made the surface yet. We don't know whether it will, but we have the tools to see whether it does as the eruption progresses.
What does, to the naked eye, does old lava look any different from newer, younger lava?
I'm sorry, you have to say that again.
Does old lava to the naked eye, to our eyes, look any different than newer, younger lava?
Well, they'd be more viscous. If you saw this, viscous, meaning it's stickier. Like that lava flow from Fissure 8 was quite thick. It was It was sort of turning away as it went. It wasn't very fast. It wasn't Pohoyhoi. And so this Fissure 15 actually put out a lava that almost had Pohoyhoi characteristics, but it seemed to be pretty grainy. It's still kind of viscous. Pasty, sorry.
As far as civil defense, with what's happening with the crater, with possible explosions there, I mean, is there any safety precautions being taken for that possibility?
Well, tonight's meeting is going to tell us a lot about what sort of precautions are being contemplated. One of the things, my understanding from what Dr. Jim has been saying is that within a safe distance, I mean, if there were explosions, it's basically within about a mile radius, within a mile radius. So,
based on the 1924.
Right. So if you figure that, you're within the park. Okay, so the residents, the park would be evacuated, right? I mean, obviously. My understanding is that ash and things like that are going to be, for the rest of us, small particulate matter. I read from the reports.
That's outside the mile radius.
That's outside of the mile radius, so that flies. And I heard that it could go as far possibly as North Hilo, but that's ash. That's, your car's going to get dusty, for example.
Not a threat, dangerous.
Not rocks or anything like that. They just don't go that far, thank goodness.
What about a respiratory issue if that kind of?
Well, you would think. I mean, the VOG affects people, so conceivably ash would affect people's breathing. So we would issue warnings about that if it warranted it. Yes, we would. We would.
The meeting tonight is where exactly?
The meeting tonight is at the Kilauea Visitor Center within the Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. So you go into the national park. It's at 7 o'clock, and my understanding is there are two prominent people from USGS HVO who are going to be there to explain what's happening. So,
is there still ash being expelled at Halemaumau, as far as you know?
Is ash being expelled?
Still, there was obviously there was a big plume this morning, but anything.
At least the last time I looked, no, it was basically gas and steam coming out.
Jen, is there a threat from to the well heads, the well caps? Is that one of the concerns that was briefed this morning?
Well,
geothermal.
That's a PGV question, and it's way beyond my technical expertise. If any sort of, I really don't know exactly what the line is on the wellheads, because I really don't know.
How much you say Thomas Magno is at PGV right now?
I am not sure exactly where he is right now. I would imagine he's going out to possibly Fisher 15, but he didn't say when he left. Okay. But he left shortly before this time.
Okay, I thought you said he headed to PGV for...
No. I didn't. I don't know that.
Okay.
I don't know that. But Fisher 15 is.
Very close.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jim, what do we call you? You're not scientist in charge anymore. It's been a while, huh?
Sorry?
You're not scientist in charge anymore. What do we call you?
Geophysicist.
Geophysicist.
And if you like it, you call me geophysicist extraordinaire.
If you say so.
Could you just spell your last name?
Or old geophysicist.
Would you mind spelling your last name for me?
All right, you've been listening to a couple people who are giving you an incredible, at least one of them, science lesson. If you never paid attention back in the day through high school or college to science, boy, it makes you, it's just gripping to listen. And just to give a little bit of perspective, Jim Kawahikawa, the gentleman that you were speaking with, he was the scientist in charge for Hawaiian Volcanoes Observatory and the USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, for 10 years before he stepped down voluntarily in March of 2015, and that's when Tina Neal took over. But you heard him say kind of jokingly, you could refer to me as a, a scientist extraordinaire. He is perhaps the most knowledgeable scientist, volcanologist, and can speak better about this volcano and what's happening at Kilauea and Pu'u'o and Halemaumau, perhaps better than anybody on the planet. So just fascinating. Such a different experience what we got, because normally Talmadge Magno is the county civil defense person. The other one that was there is Janet Snyder. Now, Janet is the county spokesperson. The county could talk about fissures. We know 15 opened up. They could talk about how many people are evacuated, how many acres of lava, has covered. That is 116. But Jim talking about the incredible science about the water mixing with the magma in the Crater Lake and the possibilities. Janet Snyder offering a little bit of interesting information about PGV, Puna Geothermal. The big concern there is they have these giant tanks that contain very flammable and very explosive oils and gases and mixtures that we've been hearing for days that they're going to get out. She says now they're supposedly going to get it out in a couple of days. She said they are concerned, and clearly the governor is too, because now the state, even though that's private property, the state is taking steps to say, hey, if you don't get that stuff out of there, we're going to jump in and we're going to get involved. And we spoke to the governor, David Ige, about that very issue earlier today.
We are being proactive. We want to ensure that we can take the actions necessary to remove the hazardous materials from the site, and then most importantly, to be prepared to prevent a blowout of the wellhead. I also would like to announce that I just signed a request to President Trump for declaration of a presidential disaster for Hawaii County as part of this eruption and the activities on the East Rift Zone on Hawaii Island.
And of course, it was just yesterday that we learned that the president approved federal disaster funds for the flooding on both Oahu and Kauai. So here, for the second time in 3 weeks, requests coming from the governor for federal assistance to deal with unforeseen circumstances, certainly. The flooding, now the volcanic emergency. And again, perhaps the most fascinating thing that Jim Kawahikawa was talking about is that some of this lava that is rearing up to the surface was rock material, lava that has been sitting underground since the 50s and now being pushed up by this fresh lava flow, the magma that is traveling underground, and an incredible scientific feat. Scientists, for their part, destruction and human side, the human toll aside, very exciting watching this event of nature. Now, to talk a little bit more about that event that's happening, the mixture of water and the gas and the magma inside the lava lake inside of Halemaumau, I want to go to Justin Cruz, who's been standing by. Going to talk a little bit about the winds, which are going to be going away. That's not good. But Justin, this science of what's happening in the lava lake is just fascinating.
Yeah, you know, I can't believe that that lava is from the 1950s. I mean, the people that live over that East Rift Zone has had that hot lava that old just stewing underneath the ground all this time, and even the fresh lava has not appeared through those fissures. So pretty incredible. I do want to point out some earthquake activity. We still have it over the East Rift Zone. The earthquakes are not as large as what we've seen from last week, the 6.9. There's also a swarm in the south flank, and there's a swarm right near Kilauea crater. So those quakes do continue, but thankfully they have not been as big as the ones that we saw last week. And we're talking magnitudes 1s, 2s, and maybe the occasional 3. This is a picture of that explosion today at 8:27 this morning. It is from a rock fall, and that just means now that the lava is starting to drain, the support system to hold these rocks along the corners around the radius of the crater starting to fall, and that's what caused the explosion. Now, what can cause a potentially larger explosion is steam, and you've heard people talk about the water table, etc. Well, take a look at this graphic over here. The lava that's in these lava lakes, again, they keep the water out, they keep the lake, for the most part, stable. But now what we're seeing is that lava drop. And as it drops, a lot of that rock starts to interact and starts to crumble right over the hot lava. And as it drops even more, the groundwater now has an opportunity to move into and interact with that hot rock and lava. I want you to think of a pressure cooker and how all of that pressure is built up. And then if you open up a pressure cooker, it could potentially explode. And that's what potentially could happen should the lava continue to drop farther down and that water starts to rush in. That steam and pressure just builds up, and then you could see an ejection of steam as well as rock out of Halemaumau. We hope that don't happen, but that is potentially a situation that could arise should that hot lava or that magma start to continue to recede. I wanted to give you a big picture of what's happened today with the fissures. We have fissure number 15. This is the most easterly fissure, and it's right along Poho'iki Road. Here's Lani Puna Gardens, which is we were talking about yesterday because of that evacuation. Here's Punagino Thermal and Leilani Estates itself. No new fissures for the southwestern areas. It's really mostly for the northeast. And again, fission 15, the farthest east that we saw today, and the new one for today. And wrapping up here, let's talk about the winds because everyone is concerned about fog and acid rain. This is a picture of our trade winds right now. Now, going ahead to the future through Thursday and Friday, the winds are going to turn somewhat southeasterly, but not to the point now it looks like that we'll have a big issue with that fog plume. While we have the trades, we have most of the fog offshore, and then with southeasterlies tomorrow, it looks like most of the fog plume will continue to stay offshore and not spread to the rest of the state because the winds won't be southeasterlies for long. However, Big Island residents, Windward Ka'u, Kona Coast, it looks like your fog levels could increase. So it looks like for the Big Island, they're going to get the brunt of all this fog and all the fog plume for the next 24 to 48 hours. Howard, back to you.
Justin, thank you very much for adding to our science lessons. So much to absorb today and so much fascinating material coming out of the Big Island. And again, just a great experience to be listening to a scientist who perhaps knows that volcano better than anybody. Again, we have Marissa Yamane and Manola Morales who are on the Big Island right now. We will have live reports from both of them tonight on the news at 5 and 6 and beyond. In the meantime, we encourage you to stay with KHON2 both on air and online as we continue to follow this volcanic emergency, continuing coverage to bring you all the very latest. For now, we thank you for joining us. Howard Dashevsky in the newsroom. We'll see you at 5. Until then, we return you to our regularly scheduled programming.